And our top story this hour, firefighters are still struggling to extinguish a fire at a building in the Pretoria city centre where shops owned by foreign nationals have been looted.
The situation got out of control during a protest earlier today. Many shops are closed now. It's alleged that a taxi driver was trying to stop a peddler from selling drugs to a potential buyer.
Tshwane Metro Police spokesperson Isaac Mahamba has advised motorists to stay clear of the CBD as the situation remains tense. Meanwhile, the city of Tshwane says its bus services will remain suspended for today. The Roads and Transport MMC in Tshwane will be meeting stakeholders later today in a bid to resolve the situation.
Well, for a little bit more on this, we now cross to our reporter Sipho Stuurman in Pretoria, who's been following this story from us from early this morning. Sipho, thanks very much indeed for joining us. We were watching your reports live as this story was unfolding. What have you been able to find out now that you've had time to kind of look back on the situation?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Peter, and our viewers at home. Are you quite correct? We are out there on the streets in Pretoria CBD by Stuurman and Lillian Ngoyi Street next to the blue taxi rank there where all these activities took place. Now, the activities that had happened there, of course, was the looting of shops believed to be owned by foreign nationals, but also alongside with that, we saw the torching of these shops by the looters. Now, early on in the morning, what had happened is that the amount of people, or the number rather, of people that were there looting the shops was far more higher than the police that were on the ground. So really, police were outnumbered earlier on and had no other option but to be bystanders and watch as the shops were being looted and being torched. And I remember during that time in the morning, it was quite difficult for us to film the visuals. They were quite volatile towards the media or any other, onlooker that had taken out their cell phones or cameras. So it was a very volatile situation quite early on. Now the situation has calmed down. Reinforcements in the form of police and Metro Police have come on board, and they've been able to sort of stabilize the situation somewhat. They are now trying to put out those flames, the torched buildings, and when we left the field a short while ago, it seemed as if they were getting the fires under control. What we understand, of course, as you mentioned in the intro, is that this is related to the events from yesterday where a taxi driver was shot following an operation by taxi operators. This operation was cleaning the streets of drug sellers. Now, of course, the taxi operators believe that Nyaope boys are selling drugs near the taxi ranks, and they are against that, and they believe the police are not doing enough to stop that illegal trade of drugs. So hence they took the matter into their own hands and went on to try and, of course, clean the streets of these drug dealers. But it got out of hand yesterday, leading to one taxi driver being shot. Now, questions remain. Where do these drug dealers get the guns? That's one of the questions, because we know these Nyaope boys, often they don't carry weapons. At least that's what taxi operators are saying. Now, they are alleging that perhaps there are relationships between the drug dealers and police. Hence, now we find these drug dealers having guns that they can be able to perhaps shoot at the taxi operators. But this version of events has not been confirmed by police. Police have simply said what has happened in Pretoria are acts of criminality, and that opportunists have taken over a genuine concern by taxi operators. Peter.
All right, so we know that at least one building for sure is under severe threat of perhaps total destruction. But I just wonder how many shops, if you have any idea, have been looted and affected in this way. And was it just shops owned by foreign nationals, or were others just caught up in the middle of it?
Well, from what we understand, the majority of the shops that were affected by this looting and the torching belonged to foreign nationals. I also spoke to one foreign national who is from, I think, Namibia, and spoken against what was happening there, and feeling that they are the target of these taxi operators. But of course, saying that it's unfair to treat foreign nationals as if they are involved in drug dealing reporting, saying that some of them are not involved in this drug dealing, and now they are a victim of the retaliation, so to speak, of the taxi drivers who are obviously unhappy that one of their own was shot yesterday. But from what I saw, I don't have the official number, I would say around 8 to 10 spaza shops have been torched from what I've seen today, this afternoon. But police maintain it's criminal activity, and that they will make sure that they investigate and arrest those that are responsible. But so far, nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been arrested for the killing yesterday. Nobody has been arrested for the looting and torching today.
All right. I mean, it is a difficult one to try and connect the dots, as it were, but is there a strong belief that yesterday's events are linked to today? The police distancing themselves from that conclusion, but from kind of listening and having your ear on the ground, what's the sense that you're getting?
Speaking to the people on the ground, this is directly linked to the events yesterday. Yesterday, as I mentioned to you, that the taxi operators went in the streets to try and clean the streets of drug dealers. As a result, one of their own died. But then, and even in the evenings, we had heard information that there were protests that were planned. And earlier on, when we arrived on the scene there were trucks that were blockading streets quite early in the morning, which means that this was a strategically planned protest action by those that were involved in it. Perhaps the looting then might have been taken over by opportunistic elements, but the protest action in of itself was a planned one, and it seems to have been a direct link to the events yesterday. But what perhaps is separate here is the looting and the torching, which the police are saying is a criminal activity. But if you speak to people on the ground, well, they blame taxi operators. But yeah, we have to operate with these two sets of information at this point in time.
All right, Sipho, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much indeed. That's our reporter, Sipho Stuurman, who really was in the eye of the tiger this morning, covering that story as it was unfolding in the centre of Pretoria. Palisa?
All right, thank you so much, Peter. Let's now take the story further. We speak to Sipho Stuurman, a researcher at the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation, and he joins us now live on the line. Good afternoon to you, Sipho. Thank you so much for coming through. Your take really on the situation in Pretoria. It started off, we understand, after a taxi driver was allegedly shot by a drug peddler, and now the situation has gotten out of hand. Shops owned by foreign nationals looted and buildings being torched.
Thanks, Palisa. There are two elements to this crisis in Pretoria. The first one is the whole call that we've been making at the Center for the Study of Violence, that there seems to be a deficit of trust between the communities as well as the police. You know, police in many cases are alleged to have, been conniving with the drug peddlers, and therefore communities would now start to take their act on their own, because there seems not to be any action from the police. That's the first one. The second one is the whole question of, where there are genuine concerns around issues of justice and criminality, where you will find agent provocateurs, where those people will take advantage of the genuine concern of the communities, and as a result, that borders on criminal elements, and in some instances lead to what we now call Afrophobia or xenophobic, attacks. So as we would know that in many instances where criminal acts happen, people lose their identity, because there's pressure. You want to have an affiliation from the group, from the group that that is engaged in these acts of criminal activities. So there are some of the two things that, for instance, we believe that are at the crux of this issue. But critically, the last point that I want to make is that as a society or the government, we need to begin to deal with the drivers of violence. What are the causes of violence, basically? These are issues of socioeconomic, inclusion and exclusion. And therefore, some people, for an example, because of their exclusion in terms of economic and social structure, they then resort to some of these things. So these are some of the things that, as a society must begin to engage with.
Let's talk about those drivers of violence, Selby, as you say, because it looks like this kind of behavior is in a way sort of becoming a norm. A few weeks ago, we saw a similar picture in the Johannesburg CBD. Shops were looted in some parts of Soweto last week as well. So are we starting to see a pattern that is sort of becoming a norm now?
In fact, we have normalized violence in society. I think part of the post-1994 settlement was to begin to deal with the liberation trauma. People are carrying a burden of the liberation, and as a result, when you say people must, the issue of disarmament, to say there are structures that are available, that are democratically established. Whenever we've got grievances, like one of which are the police, but unfortunately there's that deficit of trust between the community and the police, and therefore people would not use that, vehicle towards, addressing some of these concerns. So we have not begun to negotiate and say what are the critical instruments that are available at our disposal as society whenever we've got, grievances. So I think part of the issue that needs to be embedded, into the minds and hearts of the people of South Africa is how is the whole question of civic education to say, here are the issues, here are the structures. Whenever we've got a grievance, this is what we need to do. And certainly we agree that sometimes the justice is grinding a bit slow, but it ultimately does, grind, So these are some of the things that as part of, communicating information is that civic education must forever be at the core of what we need to do to build a democratic.
But at the same time, what's the situation saying about the levels of violence in our country? We've had the debate before around this issue. So are we a violent country as South Africa? Because as you said yourself earlier on that there are concerns now because there's some elements of criminality and xenophobia in all these incidents. Are we a violent country?
I want to strongly believe that we are a violent country. I mean, even safe institutions such as churches, schools have become, heaven for criminal elements of violence and all of that. I mean, we've been talking about where school children are engaged in studying and all of that. And unfortunately, these are young people who are supposed to be enjoying the fruits of the liberation. They have not been there during the liberation struggle. But so this has become intergenerational, and therefore, I want to argue that South Africa has become violent. You go to churches, even in churches, we see violent acts that are perpetrated by the congregants. So basically, even the safe spaces where we thought that there we will find safety and comfort, you would find a situation where even there, violence erupts. So there are no longer holy cows now. Everywhere, wherever we go in the country, you will find elements of violence, creeping out.
All right, Selby, we have to leave it at that, but thank you so much for coming through. Selby Klingwa is a researcher at the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation, CSVR, joining us now on the line. Peter?